mean, there are growing calls for the state to urgently appeal the ruling by the Western Cape High Court, which acquitted ANC member Bongani Bongo of corruption charges last week. Some are even calling for the removal of Judge John Hlophe, who presided over the case. Now, the judgment concluded that there was no evidence on which a court would reasonably find Bongo guilty of corruption. In fact, let's get you some analysis on the story now. We're joined by Mpumelelo Zikalala, who is the Durban Coastal chairperson of the Black Lawyers Association. Mpumelelo, good morning. Once again, thanks very much for coming on to the AM report. I mean, the organization Freedom Under Law, it has reiterated its calls to the Judicial Service Commission that Judge John Hlophe be suspended. But before we get there, let's talk about the merits of this case against Bongani Bongo. It doesn't appear it's the end of the road for the state.
Not at all. Section 174 dismissals basically means that if you look at it from the side of the public or within the legal industry, the NPA didn't do its job. The amount of investigation that was done in this matter was very minimal. Now, it baffles someone who would prepare a case, go to court with an intention of saying, I want to get a conviction and I want to prove beyond reasonable doubt that indeed this accused committed this particular crime, and only to be dismissed with the Section 174 discharge. Since now it means either the NPA didn't do its job properly or it's actually the court that has got it wrong. Now, if it's the court that has got it wrong, the NPA has a duty of saying, let's go to the Supreme Court of Appeals in order to get this decision dismissed so that he is able to come back and answer to these allegations.
Yeah. It's not unusual for sectors of society to disagree with a decision of the court, is it, Mpumelelo? It's different this time, though, because it is Judge John Hlophe.
It's not unusual. We all have opinions as to the merits of the case and how we would like cases to go.
Yeah.
But in this one, because it's Judge Hlophe and he does have a bit of history behind him in terms of how he's dealt with matters and also the allegations which are leveled against him. But in that one, the call that should be made should be saying, let's go to the Judicial Services Commission. That's why you have that particular institution there to look into the conduct of judges and how they conduct themselves. Now, if it's a question of the conduct of the judge, the JSC is there to deal with it. If it's a question of the merits, there are various appeal procedures. You have the Supreme Court of Appeals, you have the Constitutional Court, all those processes are there. What we should be calling, though, we should be saying, let's not cloud any judgments or any arguments that can be leveled against anyone. All that we need to do is to say to them, follow the proper procedures, go to the correct platform, so that at the end of the day, you'll be able to get the best decision that actually favors the interest of justice.
So Justice Johan Kriegler, former Constitutional Court Justice Johan Kriegler, has called on the JSE to urgently suspend John Hlophe pending the conclusion of proceedings for his removal from office. The JSE responding to that, saying, we can't simply suspend a judge. There are, as you say, appeals processes.
Definitely. We must also remember that the judge also has rights, and those rights must be protected. The JSC is a neutral party that simply responds to complaints and has a perfect way or a procedure that must be followed, letting ensure that justice is served and protected from both sides. So to simply say I'm going to suspend you due to allegations is not a proper way of doing things. We must also remember the interview process and the way in which one is appointed as a judge is very vigorous. And it takes into account all those things. Now, it would baffle someone to say, you have followed this rigorous procedure, you have selected this person out of many other persons you could have selected, you have appointed him as the judge president of the division, and at the end of the day, you don't trust in his skills, or you don't trust in the way in which he's conducted himself. Now, if that's the case, and there are merits in your application or in your complaint, go to the JSC, follow the proper procedure, and let the JSC deal with the matter.
Mpumelelo, why is a call for the suspension of a judge following an unpopular decision dangerous? And I want you to give us your analysis, given the kinds of attacks we've seen in recent months on our country's courts already.
You see, the first problem which we are going to find is that once such calls are entertained now or in the near future, they are going to sort of cloud the merits that follow that particular judgment. So we are not going to learn anything from the judgments which are going to be issued by our courts. Secondly, it's going to cast judgment as to the way in which we administer justice and in the way in which our courts operate. We can't have a system where our own public doesn't believe in our own justice system. That's the one way in which anarchy can be bred and in which anarchy can rise into unmanageable amounts. So at the end of the day, you need to create a system where the justice will be created, will be protected at all times, but most importantly, it must be respected. One of the most important things that us as members of the public, the influential individuals that are out there in the media, NGOs, whether it's public figures or even politicians, we must always make sure that we protect our courts and the decisions of our courts. Reason being, if you are not happy with the particular decisions, there are processes that are there that you can follow. They've been created specifically so that at the end of the day, they are able to give you an audience. And there's an independent person other than the forum that we're in before that will take a decision that will be able to prove whether you are wrong or whether you are right. Going into media spaces or into public arena and sort of bashing the judiciary and bashing our justices is certainly not going to help us as South Africans in moving forward.
Mpumelelo, before we let you go, I want to talk, if I may, just for one more question on the issues around the case against Bongani Bongo and perhaps why there might be grounds to appeal. For one, you know, some analysts are saying there are parts of the judgment that are right, there are others that are perhaps questionable. In one sense, the fact that Vanara, the single witness, came forward. Judge John Hlophe is saying that he is a single witness and one must be cautious when considering the testimony of that single witness. The other issue is around Vanara not going to lay a charge when this bribery case or when this offer of a bribe was made to him.
Now let's look at his evidence, the single witness, in two stances. Firstly, at the end of the state's case, what I would have said was to say, I want to hear what the defense is going to say. I've listened to your Section 174 application, but I still think that there's a case to answer. Reason being, the police would not investigate and the NPA would not invest an amount of time and resources into this particular matter if there were no merits. The mere fact that there's an allegation that has been made and someone that says, I'm the witness who says I listened to someone and proposals were made to me, it warrants me as a presiding officer to say, I want to listen what the defense is going to be. Are they going to deny or are they going to admit parts of it depending on the evidence that they bring about? Now, to simply dismiss it without listening to the other side or listening to the defense, it does show a bit of concern here and there, because all the other elements that are required in order to convict or to get a conviction are there. There was communication, they know each other, they spoke each other. The content of what they spoke about and how the particular responses and proposals were made is what is in question in this case. So to simply dismiss it on a 174 without hearing, especially a case of this magnitude, it does certainly cast a bit of aspersions here and there. However, it is not abnormal, as there are cases that are dismissed on 174, which is why I say, if the state is really certain that there's a case to answer here, they must appeal to the Court of Appeals and say to them, please come to different conclusions. These are our reasons. All that we need is for the accused to go into the witness box, state his case, and if it's indeed true what he is saying, then he will be acquitted by the appropriate court.
Mpumelelo, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this conversation this morning. Thanks very much for weighing in, giving us your analysis on this issue. He is the Durban Coastal chairperson of the Black Lawyers Association, Mpumelelo Zikalala.